Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Indigenous Commission, Thursday, August 7th, 2025 at 11:08 a.m. I'll do the roll call. Ex officio, Diana Cuddy.
I'm here.
Great. Ex officio, Linda Curley. She's absent. Co-chair Lance.
Yeah, I don't see her.
Okay. Co-chair Lance here. Co-chair Mariah Zavala.
She's excused absence.
Okay. Commissioner Shirley Francis.
Here.
Great. Commissioner Hosky.
Here.
Okay. Commissioner Moana.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Marks.
He's excused absence.
Got it. Commissioner Marshall.
I haven't heard from her.
Okay. Got it. Would anybody like to volunteer to read the land acknowledgement? I can read it.
Good job.
Okay, got it. The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place is home. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, public comment. At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject within their jurisdiction that is not scheduled before the commission on that day. Due to open meeting laws, the commission cannot discuss or act on items presented during this portion of the agenda. To address the commission on an item that is on the agenda, please wait for the chair to call for public comment at the time the item is heard. Maximum 3 minutes per individual. Okay, doesn't seem like there's any public comment. Item number 4, approval of minutes. There's none at this time. Item 5, general business. A, updates on Commission on Diversity Awareness CODA projects. CODA staff liaison Chris Rohde will provide an update on CODA projects throughout the year. He will be able to share outcomes and expand on some projects prepared for the future. Mr. Rohde, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chairman Lance, members of the commission for having me here. For the record, my name is Chris Rohde, Special Programs Manager with the Communications and Public Engagement Division of the City of Flagstaff. And I'm also the staff liaison to the Commission on Diversity Awareness. So I'm here in front of you today to talk about some of the projects that we've been working on over the last year or so, and things that we're going to be continuing to work on into the near and medium term futures. This was a request that a few of you had to hear about some of our activities because our commissions oftentimes have kind of overlap in the things we work on. So just a kind of an opportunity to get in the know about what we're doing. And then I'll note as well that part of the reason this is a decent idea right now is that I'm working on kind of a slow transition away from the organization. So a few months away, our commission will have different staff leadership. And the more people that know about and are invested in the work that we're doing, the better chance that some of these projects continue to have momentum that will be required to take them to a good point of completion. So I do have a presentation here. Let me see if I can pull it up for you, just to go over a few of our projects. And I'm happy to take any questions either as they come up, or if you'd like to wait till the end, I'm happy for that as well. Okay, let's see here. And that is going to, of course, give me the wrong I am to be sharing. Let me try it this way. Just share my whole screen. And do this. All right, there we go. Y'all appear kind of as a smaller tiles in the right-hand corner, so please feel free to speak up if you notice them with the hand up, or just shout out if it's easier. All right. So just to get right into it, I want to talk about a couple of our bigger projects that we're working on, and the biggest project that we have right now is our Rainbow Crosswalk project, which started several years ago under a previous mayoral administration with efforts to put a multicolored rainbow style crosswalk somewhere in the city of Flagstaff. We do not currently have one anywhere, and it's been something that other communities around the nation and in Arizona have done, and there's been some interest in our community of doing it here. So we kind of brought this project back about a year ago, and excuse me, sorry. I've been trying to engage our local community groups to work with us on this project. So that would be Flag Pride and, oh, that's actually supposed to say the Northern Arizona Queer Coalition. I think they got cropped out. Sorry about that. But they have joined a working group with a few of our members of CODA, and they're doing most of the grunt work each month, meeting, I believe, at least monthly to continue progressing it. Now, some of the challenges on this project that we've had is that the city engineering and attorneys staff have been kind of opposed to this project if it takes place on a vehicle thoroughfare, so essentially in a lane of motorized traffic. They're opposed to it because it would go against the Uniform Manual on Traffic Control Devices, which is a publication that's put out by the Federal Department of Transportation. We adopt that document, and we can adopt it with some revisions, and we usually do, but it still is not sanctioned technically by that document, and city staff has been worried about liability if someone were to get injured in this crosswalk, and then coming back and saying, oh well, it wasn't marked according to this manual that's supposed to standardize all these kind of things. Other cities have just chosen to waive that and say that we know it's not in the manual, but we're going to do it anyways. City council does have that authority. It has not been in front of them, as far as I know, to take that step. In any case, they've been welcoming of this project if it were to be in a different location, so in a park space or a pedestrianized plaza or somewhere where there is not motorized traffic, because that Uniform Manual Traffic Control Devices would not apply. So our working group has been working to identify various locations that would be appropriate for this, and working to create potential designs that could accentuate the space and work very well in that area. They've been studying the public art project that was put in front of the Flagstaff Arts and Leadership Academy over in the Cheshire neighborhood. If you've seen that, I think it's on Fremont Street. They did a lot of kind of artwork. It's on the asphalt, but it doesn't go into the lanes of traffic. So looking at possibly something like that. And then we're also seeking sources to fund it, and then keep up with maintenance that would be required in the future if it needs new coats of paint or that kind of thing. A second big project we've been looking at, especially over the last year, is the city's anti-camping ordinance. So just to give you a little bit of history on this, there was a court case in 2018 called Martin versus Boise. So it came out of the city of Boise, Idaho. And essentially it ruled that local municipal governments are not allowed to criminalize people for sleeping or existing in public spaces if they have nowhere else to go. So the short way to describe it was, unless the officer that was responding to a person that was camping in public could prove that there was space available in a public shelter. So usually they would call the shelter and say, do you have a bed right now? And if the answer was yes, that answer had to be yes in order for them to issue any kind of a criminal citation for camping in public, even if a city had an ordinance prohibiting it. If the shelter was full or if there were no other beds available, then it was illegal to ask them to move, illegal to criminalize it in any way. That was the rule that we've been going under for since 2018. And last summer, in June of 2024, it was overturned in a case called Johnson versus Grants Pass out of Grants Pass, Oregon, that essentially said that no, that's not correct. Cities are allowed to prohibit camping on public spaces and tents or things like that. So last summer, we were kind of thrust into this position where the city of Flagstaff, which does have an anti-camping ordinance on the books, that we'd had to enforce very specifically. And it generally resulted in the city almost never actually arresting or criminally citing anybody for it. All of a sudden, those barriers were gone. And the Commission on Diversity Awareness has been very concerned about what this can mean, kind of on both sides of the equation. First, because it could allow, hypothetically, for a large and sudden uptick in citations and arrests for this ordinance. So we engaged with Chief Connolly and the Flagstaff Police Department to see what their protocols were going to be on this, how they were going to enforce it. And essentially what they said is that they do not want to start incarcerating people for this. They don't want this on people's records, that they want to lead with services and education first. So they've still continued to do that over the last year. We've met with them a few times, and I think we met with them last maybe in January or so. So it has been about 6 months. But they had reported to us at that time that they had not made an arrest on this yet and did not intend to begin doing so. So they're still trying to lead with this first. And it's a bit of a touchy subject for the commission, just knowing that we want to be, what's the word I'm looking for here, respectful and welcoming to everyone in our community that we can be. But with a city like Flagstaff built in the forest, there has been concern about campfires specifically. People, if they were to create a fire in a steel drum bin, or if they're camping on public spaces in Flagstaff, people often go into the forest, oftentimes still on city property or outside of city property, but near it. Right now we've been in stage 2 fire restrictions for, I think, over a month, maybe 2 months even. And that is a community that tends to need fire for a lot of their warmth, things like that. So it's kind of a tricky situation where we want to be welcoming and respectful to everybody, but we don't want to create a liability that could cause a hazard in our community. So CODA wanted to be really involved with talking to Flag PD about how they are handling this. And what we've learned is that it's been education and services first. And another thing that this happened, just as a note, it happened, I believe, on Chief Connolly's 4th day being our new police chief. It was his first week. So kind of a big thing to be thrust upon you when you're in a position like that. And one thing that he has talked about a few times with us is that he has a desire to create a citizen review board that would be able to review and advise the Flagstaff Police Department on their activities. So I haven't talked to him since probably January, so I don't know if this is in the process of being set up. But we're hopeful and supportive of that he continues moving the department in that direction, allowing for public input on topics like this and other ones that are important to the community. The third option, the third item that we've been working on is a women's rights working group. So this again was one that was kind of a holdover from a previous mayoral administration. There was a desire to create possibly even a new commission that focuses on women's rights. So we've we've had this conversation once or twice in the last year as the Commission on Diversity Awareness, and we've been trying to carve out the right space for this because there are a lot of groups in Flagstaff that we want to advocate for, and we want to have their own space to discuss issues that are specific to them. Your commission on Indigenous matters is a great example of that. We also have a commission on inclusivity and adaptive living. So along with those two commissions, the Commission on Diversity Awareness kind of has a similar role, where ours is a little bit more general. Inclusivity and adaptive living is more meant for ADA type things, but it does have that inclusivity aspect, and so do you in the Indigenous Commission. So we were looking at creating a fourth one, and kind of stopped to think, well, that might be too many. That might be too many commissions that are focused on a specific group or class of people, and we maybe don't need an individual commission for all of them, because it creates a lot of staff time to staff all of these commissions. And if the work that we're doing, if we're not overwhelmed by our current workload, we kind of felt that our commission was still suitable to focus on these kind of things. We also looked at creating a subcommittee within our commission, and saw that that's just kind of a not very often used mechanism for the city of Flagstaff. Currently, as far as I know, there's only two subcommittees, both on the Transportation Commission, and there's one on pedestrians and one on bike safety. But there's 20 some odd commissions in the city of Flagstaff that don't use subcommittees. So that was a discussion we had that we decided kind of to table for the meantime. And the discussion kind of turns to what is the right size of an advisory group to be focusing on these issues. And our conversation actually turns towards some of the similarities that our commission has with CIAL, the Commission on Inclusivity and Adaptive Living. They're both staffed within our team. And we're looking at possibilities of joining these two commissions into one that focuses on all of the above. So it would be inclusivity, diversity, and adaptive living, or something along those lines. We don't want to do this if it's going to actually take away from the work that's being done. We think that both these groups are doing a lot of good work, but it was a discussion that we had that may continue into the future to see if we could be a bit more efficient by having all those conversations in the same space. And we have absolutely no intention of taking away the mission or the work that is being done from either of these groups, just looking at whether having one group doing that work would be more efficient. But in the meantime, the Women's Rights Working Group has been tabled, although we still have a lot of desire to continue advocating in that space. One item, and I'm not sure if anybody from your commission's been a part of this, but we've been working with the Flagstaff Library on an oral history project. Is this something that you're familiar with at all? I know it's been going on for quite some time, probably a few decades at this point, but I'm not sure if the Indigenous Commission has been involved in recent times on it. If not, you may want to pay attention, because it kind of is something that you may have an interest in. So we do have a working group for this one. So, and that is a small informal group that includes a few members of our commission, as well as people that are not in our commission, all working together kind of informally. It's been a project to create and preserve oral histories of Northern Arizona. So it's it's not written, it's people actually telling a story as a recording. And it includes ranchers, businessmen, politicians, Indigenous people, community leaders, anyone else you can think of that has a story that's worth preserving. They've been trying to collect these and find the right place to preserve them. They started working with the Flagstaff Library, and the library kind of determined that they were not the right place to hold this project. So they're still working to help with it, and they've given us a lot of really good resources. But they've put us in touch with the Arizona Memory Project, which is run by the Arizona State Library, and they are now housing this project. So this has been kind of the brainchild in recent years of one of our commissioners, Angelica Sanchez, who's worked really hard on this. She cares about it deeply and has kind of just been running with it, doing a fantastic job on it. I think that she meets with once a month or so with some library staff and some other folks as they try to build their collection and find ways to make it more accessible to the public. I believe this project did start with Indigenous stories, as that verbal medium is, much more traditional to a lot of different Indigenous groups. So it started there and branched out to being a larger kind of statewide oral history project, but it's continuing. It's one of our kind of our indefinite projects that we're hoping continues indefinitely and continues to grow, and that we can kind of get to a point where we can really show it off. But if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. I'm happy to leave an email address, and I'm sure we would love more collaboration on this, as the work of really one of our commissioners in particular has made this into something that's really nice and worth continuing. But I know that we're always looking to grow it. Inclusive wayfinding, I included this one. It's kind of a smaller project because it only came to us once, but as far as we know at CODA, it's still continuing, and we support its continuation. So we got a presentation, I think it was in maybe November of last year. Yeah. And it started with Downtown Business Alliance looking to create new signage in the downtown area as a pilot project, and then expanding it more throughout the community that would use Indigenous languages and symbols first. So instead of it being a sign that's in English first, it would be in other languages. It could be Navajo, Spanish, Hopi, anything else that's appropriate for that space, which kind of presents that first and then draws people into it. And you can still read information in English or another language that you'd like it to, but it kind of presents that more culturally authentic symbolism and depiction as the primary thing, and puts that on display in a way that really puts it at the forefront, and then draws people into it in a way that they can still find all the information successfully, but in a way that's a little bit more respectful and it kind of adheres to the traditional norms of the way we want to present some of these things. So we were highly supportive of this initiative, but felt that we were not the right commission to continue work on it. So I believe that they came and presented to you all after they presented to us. So it's kind of out of our wheelhouse at this point, but it's one that we're still interested in supporting and hopefully seeing it turn to an actuality in our community. So if any of you have an update on that, we would love to hear it. But if not, the Commission on Diversity Awareness just wants to continue keeping tabs on it and making sure that it doesn't just fall the wayside and never get out of the idea phase. But we have not had anything specifically that we've done on it since November of last year. Another one I think that you all are involved in is the newer multicultural county park sculpture exhibition. So we participated, I think we're in our third year at this point with it. And each year we've sent one of our members and an alternate to this exhibition, and each time that they've come back and just said that it was a fantastic experience, and we are hoping to continue participating with this every year going forward. And I'm sure that you probably have similar feelings on it. Feelings on this project. It has been fantastic, and Jenna Weldon's team over at Public Art and Beautification has done a great job putting this on for the last few years. And we at CODA have been very happy to be involved and look forward to continuing, hopefully indefinitely. I think this is my last slide here. The last item that is kind of recurring is our proclamations. We probably send more proclamations to City Council than any other group. We're there just about once a month. And we're trying to do a better job of collaborating on these proclamations with community groups. In the past, our staff and commissioners have kind of written a proclamation and then sent it to council, and that's the end of it. But we're trying to do a better job of engaging with groups that actually are doing work in our community in these spaces. So we've created partnerships for, I think, a little more than half of these groups now, where they're involved in our commission's drafting of the proclamation. We're able to include a lot more local events and projects that are being worked on, as opposed to just some national ones or broader topics. We're actually able to call out some of the great things happening here in the Flagstaff community. And then we've also been successful in bringing these groups to council so that they get to be present when the proclamations are read, and they get that platform at a city council public meeting to kind of talk about their activity in our community and the events that they put on. So each year we start and we kind of front load. We have a lot of activity on these in January and February with Black History Month and MLK Day. Just next month, we're going to have Hispanic Heritage Month and then LGBTQ History Month. We do that one in collaboration kind of at the same time as Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is in November of each year. So we're pretty active throughout the calendar. We haven't had anything since Pride and Juneteenth, which is kind of our biggest month for events. We're trying to work to support the Live Black Experience Project and Flag Pride as they put on some really good events. And this year, they were on different weekends, which was fantastic because we got to kind of fully participate in both of them. And we're hoping that continues as well. So we're trying to kind of do repetitive and continuous work on each of these. Some of them are a lot more progressed. Obviously, our Pride is pretty big at this point. We had the first lady at our event last year, which was fantastic, and that's bigger than some of these other ones. But we're trying to do whatever we can to bring these back to the community and support the groups that are working in these spaces. And that is my last slide. So these are the main projects we're working on at CODA. It's not every single thing we've been doing, but it's the ones that we have the greatest interest in continuing into the future and have been putting the most work into kind of regularly that we felt it was worth sharing. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to talk about any of them specifically or answer any other comments you may have. Thank you.
Back to you, Chair, Co-Chair.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Rohde. I got a little question about the library oral history project that you got.
Yeah.
You were saying that you could give us an email if we ever wanted to reach out to get more information, or do you know, like, I guess my questions would be like, what kind of Indigenous peoples have you guys, or has that project been working with?
It's been pretty comprehensive. I believe they have over 600 recordings of different groups. So I don't have specific tribes or people ready to go to tell you who they've been, but it's become pretty comprehensive at this point. So my understanding is that it would catalog quite a few different tribal communities, if not all of them. And I also don't know the specifics of which stories are included. I've just kind of been hoping to keep the administrative side of things running, so I don't know the content as closely. But it's pretty comprehensive at this point, and they're looking to continue growing it.
So when is this like library oral history project presented to people? Like, is it done like during certain events when they bring it up, or like,
I-
do you know anything
Sorry.
about that?
I think that's their goal in the future, is to make it more accessible and kind of more actively out in some of those spaces. Uh, Over the last year or so, they've been looking for the right place to house the information. So they had all this data, all of these different stories, and they've been looking for a public place to kind of keep it. And that's been their first challenge. And they landed on the Arizona Memory Project, the state library. And I think that that's the next step, is finding new ways to get this information into exhibits and into events where it can be shown off greater. But they've kind of put it passively in a space that will hopefully save it and protect it. And I think the next step would be to figure out ways to show it off even more.
That sounds like a good project to maybe include in the cultural center when that gets all done and up and running. You know, be a place for people to know about Indigenous peoples and the Northern Arizona history. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll send Rose an email with all of my contact information, and she can disperse it to all of you, or disseminate it to all of you, and then you can reach out if you'd like to join, and I can help coordinate that if you're interested in participating.
Sure. Looks like we got a hand up. CF Productions.
Is that what it says on your end?
It does. Okay, Cheryl Francis. Okay.
I think I need to change that on my Teams meeting. Good morning, Chris. This is Commissioner Francis. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very informative. So much information going on in the city of Flagstaff. I also wanted to comment on what Commissioner Lance had mentioned about the film oral history project. I was curious, if I'm not sure, I do understand there was a similar project in partnership, I think, with NAU. I went to an event last summer at NAU, and it was called Tribal Sourcing Southwest Film, and it's with the University of Arizona and I do believe Southern California, and they were documenting Native people's history of the Southwest. So I was wondering if that was the same
I don't.
project.
Thank you, Commissioner Francis. I don't think that's the same project.
Okay.
I've not heard of that specific one, and I've not heard of a project working with the U of A or anyone in Southern California. So it's not ringing a lot of bells. I'll note that this is one that I'm a little bit less involved in. It's
Okay.
been really Commissioner Sanchez and then some staff from our library that have been more familiar with the content of it. So I'm not the best person to speak on that, but I don't believe that's the
No worries.
same one.
So in the chat, I'll just leave that link so that everybody can see what I'm speaking about. And
Yeah,
then
fantastic.
other than that, great. I really appreciate your information.
Looks like we got a question for you, Mr. Rhodey, in the chat from
Okay.
Commissioner Hosky.
See, I cannot see the chat right now. Let me see if I can figure out a way to pull that up.
It just says, Chris, where do we send suggestions for the wayfinding project? And I can probably coordinate with commissioners on that.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say that's one that I think we kind of forwarded to you all. So I don't have up-to-date information on the status of that project. Just that we have an interest in it and wanted to continue supporting it if we could. I can reach out to one of our commission members is from the Downtown Business Alliance. I can reach out to him. He's been working on it, or interested in it at least, to see if it's progressed at all and what happens next. And then if there are suggestions, I think he'd be a good person to send that to, and that's Manny Hernandez. I don't have his information, but I can share that as well in the email to you, Rose.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks again, Mr. Rhodey, for your presentation. As always.
Of course.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Are there any questions from the public? No, don't see any. So go ahead to the next one, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Chris.
Thank you all.
We'll move on to general business. Item B, Observatory Mesa Natural Area. Proposed renaming recommendation. Open Space Supervisor Robert Wallace will request input from the Indigenous Commission regarding the proposed renaming of the Observatory Mesa Natural Area to Observatory Mesa Natural and Cultural Preserve, and explore additional opportunities to recognize Indigenous connections to this landscape. Mr. Wallace, the floor is yours.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robert Wallace, and I work for the Open Spaces section. And today, Rebecca Sayers, the director of our division, has joined me in case you have any questions for her as well. I'm also the Open Spaces Commission liaison. And what our section does is we manage existing open space regional preserves. We also plan open space for the community, and we provide outdoor education events as well. The Open Spaces Commission has asked me to represent them today on this topic and of potentially renaming the Observatory Mesa Natural Area. So just wanted to give you a little bit of background about what they do. So here's, you see the mission of the commission: to advocate and support the development of Flagstaff open space system while preserving current Flagstaff open space and providing equitable recreational opportunities and educational experiences. I thought I would start out just by sharing a little bit of map, just to give you a little background. These are our regional preserves that you see here. Picture Canyon there being on the east side of town, kind of back behind the mall. 500 acres. It has a lot of cultural ties there. McMillan Mesa, just south of Buffalo Park. If you cross the Cedar Bridge there's 300 acres protected there that provides the immediate neighborhoods with great access. And then the preserve that we're talking about today, Observatory Mesa Natural Area, there on the west side of town, just west of where Thorpe Park is located. One of the things that the Open Spaces Commission has been interested in moving forward is this open space system that interconnects the community and offers a 10-minute walking access time to open space for all residents. So you can see that little map of that kind of vision there on this particular slide. In addition to this major goal, the Open Spaces Commission helps our section with planning and implementation of projects that support the community on numerous open space topics. One such topic that the Commission has recently helped with is the community trail planning for the Observatory Mesa area. The Commission has helped us in many different ways to conduct a public process to develop this trail plan. And throughout this plan, there has been some concern about the area becoming more recreational focused rather than having an overall conservation focus. So we heard this from many involved, and the commission really wants to ensure the preservation and character of this landscape is protected in perpetuity. So the Open Spaces Commission feels that the regional preserve's current name, the Observatory Mesa Natural Area, doesn't speak to the preservation of the area. So their intent is to develop a recommendation to our open space section to consider modifying the name to better reflect the significance of the area as more than just a recreational destination, and to emphasize the overall preservation of both natural and cultural resources, as well as connections that the Indigenous nations have to this area. The commission believes this change would better align with the conservation easements and other guiding documents that direct the management of Observatory Mesa. And also Picture Canyon as well has those same conservation easements as well in place. The Open Spaces Commission is seeking input from the Indigenous Commission to determine whether this proposed name change from Observatory Mesa Natural Area to Observatory Mesa Natural and Cultural Preserve would be an appropriate update that may help recognize the importance of an Indigenous culture and natural resources of the area. Additionally, the Commission wanted me to welcome any recommendations that the Indigenous Commission has in other ways to honor and recognize Indigenous heritage, such as through interpretive signage, culturally significant trail names, or other educational initiatives. As we move forward with implementing our trail plan for this area, there'll be the opportunity to consider signage and trail names and that sort of thing. That's my very quick presentation. The Open Space Commissioners really thank you for your time and consideration. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know.
Looks like Commissioner Francis has a question.
Great. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Hi, good morning, Robert. Thank you for your presentation also. I am wondering, is there a deadline that the commission has for us to respond back? Is there a certain time that we should be, aware of to get a name back or a selection of names, or if we think of something?
No, there is no timeline necessarily the commission is presented to me. We do actually have a couple of other weighty topics on our agenda for the next couple of months. So it is possible that we could push this item back on their agenda if that's something that the Indigenous Commission would find helpful.
Commissioner
Is there
Marks?
Oh, go ahead. Is there anybody else that has any questions for Mr. Wallace?
Commissioner Marks is on. Commissioner Marks is on.
Okay, my question would be, is there an opportunity for us to, because on the timeline, thinking about that, is there a way that we can survey or poll within our communities to gather suggestions of names or even work to identify the way that the space was identified by Indigenous communities?
I think that there could be an opportunity for that. Currently the Open Spaces Commission they're considering keeping the root part of the name, the Observatory Mesa portion of the name, because it's been a name that's been known in the community for such a long time. They are mainly thinking about changing the ending of the name from this natural area to include natural area and cultural preserve, to give recognition that the area is more than just a natural area for recreating in, and that is set aside to preserve these resources for the residents of Flagstaff and visitors in perpetuity. Though that said, if the Indigenous Commission thinks that the root part of that name needs to change as well, I can certainly take that feedback to the Open Spaces Commission.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Marks?
It answered my question, but he's asking, is that something that we as a commission want to explore, the opportunity to possibly change the name of Observatory Mesa Natural and Cultural Preserve to something that's more indigenously focused?
And I see there's someone else there.
Looks like
Hello, this
Commissioner Milana.
is Commissioner Lamont. I agree with that kind of concept to try to find a kind of more culturally significant name while maintaining obviously the Observatory Mesa piece. I don't know, when I think of a preserve, I still think like natural area. I still think animals and things like that. So I would try to kind of think of a different word than preserve, because it just doesn't sound not my favorite word. But yeah, I think I would, this is an important conversation to have. And it's good and important that you're bringing this conversation to us today.
Great, thanks for that input.
Mr. Wallace, this is Commissioner Lance. When you were talking about like the signage and stuff like that, are there times when you guys go to resubmit to get new signage, or is the signage that's there currently already
Yeah,
the new
thanks.
one?
Thanks for that question. There is some minor signage at the major access points coming up out of Thorpe Park and Railroad Springs, and a few other signs kind of interdispersed throughout the property. One of the reasons we are moving forward on this trail plan is that there are currently just 5.8 miles of formal trail in 2,200 acres. And so the plan that the public has provided input on would add additional trails and would also sign the area to help make the directions clear. And so within the trail plan that we developed, it has 3 phases. And if you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's on our website. It's a pretty in-depth plan. And each phase would look at adding trails, restoring unauthorized trails that are maybe not in a sustainable location. It would add directional sign, interpretive signage, and in some phases, some parking for the community. So as we move forward with this plan and implementation, we will be revisiting all of the signage for the area. And so we would love input from the Indigenous Commission on signage. And so maybe that's the sweet spot where if there's a place to talk a little bit more about Indigenous culture and heritage, that maybe we have like interpretive signs kind of recognizing that topic throughout the preserve. So there'll be an option. There'll be ways that we can involve the commission through interpretive signage, culturally significant trail names, and then we do education there as well. We did identify a location for an educational zone that's closer to the boundary that would allow field trips like FUSD school to do trips within the area to learn a little bit more about the natural and cultural history.
Yeah, I think you know, that signage is going to be, you know, key, like maybe being able to put like a QR code with links to be able to, you know, have your new maps, and even the cultural side, you know, what this area is about, you know, and the cultural people. But, you know, because there's so much information that can be put on a sign, you know, and anymore, a lot of people are doing things with QR codes, you know, so I don't know if that's already implemented. I haven't looked at the site or anything like that, or even been up there. But maybe that's something that can be implemented. QR codes are very, very useful these days.
Yeah, thanks for that recommendation. You know, a lot of communities are using story mapping as a successful way of like telling the story of natural and cultural history. So that'd be a great idea for having like a link to that on our signage that you know, has some of that information that people that want to learn a little bit more can do a little digging and find that on.
So, Commissioner Francis, do you have your hand up?
No, Commissioner Cuddy was first.
3I.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the information. My question is, or I'm just curious about what the some people you mentioned in your presentation that there are some individuals who feel that that the area is becoming more for recreational uses. What do they mean by recreational uses? What what is it that they feel is not aligned with the preservation of it?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So during our trail planning process, we had 3 public meetings and 3 comment periods where we asked the community what they want to see up on the mesa. And that ranged from everything to leaving the mesa as it is without any additional trails or signage to implementing many miles of trail. And so we worked with the community to try to find that middle ground of providing recreational opportunities. And by that, I mean passive types of recreation, walking, biking, running, and some equestrian use as well. We cater to passive recreation, which is different from our parks section, which allows active recreation that has infrastructure that is for specific types of use, like ball fields or playgrounds and that sort of thing. And so, some people feel that the trail plan is moving the mesa into a direction where it will allow more recreation. And that, I think, is true. We will be offering a larger selection of trails and roads open to the public for those passive types of use that I mentioned. And some people, I think that direction might not be as good for the community, and that more of a preservation mindset should, be something that we consider. And we did, I think, good job of like finding that middle ground of allowing access, but also preserving large sections of the property for wildlife movement and for trees and just for general character as well.
Commissioner Francis?
Thank you, Rose. To clarify, Robert, so what you're asking this commission is not so much in terms of proposed renaming of Observatory Mesa Natural and Cultural Preserve, which is what your commission is thinking that's where it's going to go, for the additional part of cultural preserve. But you're asking us possible recommendations for signage along your trails. Can you clarify what you're asking us?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. The commission did, they had a couple of discussions about this now after we finished our trail plan. And at first, they have just been talking about changing the end of the name. And, there was a discussion about changing the entire name to something else. And the commission at the most recent meeting seemed to land on keeping that root part, the Observatory Mesa. And that, I think the reasoning for that is that it was on official USGS maps at least 75 years ago. And the Lowell Observatory, which neighbors our property, was established in 1894, which is like 131 years ago. And so the area is kind of named after kind of the Lowell Observatory area as Observatory Mesa. And so they have given me direction that they think that keeping that root part of the name would be beneficial since there's so much recognition around the name currently. But they did want me to come back to the Indigenous Commission and ask, like, does that name change to add cultural preserve seem appropriate? And they compared that to Picture Canyon, which is also called, the official name for Picture Canyon is Picture Canyon Natural and Cultural Preserve. And that is listed on the heritage sites because of all of the Indigenous background there, as far as like some of the structures and the rock art that we have there. Here in Observatory Mesa, we have had a cultural survey done. There are some cultural sites there, both historic and older. There are not as many as you would find at Picture Canyon. In fact, there's not really a lot of sites that are prominent enough to provide interpretation for. They're mostly like lithic scatters and things like that. And so they are looking for feedback from the Indigenous Commission on whether or not they feel it's appropriate to include cultural preserve in the overall title, given the fact that, there are maybe not cultural sites to really interpret there, but to demonstrate that we want to recognize that this was an important area for Indigenous cultures now and prior to this time.
So my response to you, Robert, you can tell Commissioner Lena to change it to Observatory Mesa Natural and Indigenous Preserve.
Thanks for that feedback.
That would be something I think she would appreciate. But I thank you again. So again, to clarify, this title will stay in English is what your commission is saying. And you're already kind of leaning towards where you're just asking us about this and cultural preserve to add to this part.
That is the direction I think that I've gotten from our commission. And I really do appreciate you trying to help clarify that. I think if the Indigenous Commission wanted to make a different type of recommendation to the Open Spaces Commission, you are certainly, we'll certainly take that recommendation forward to them so they can get your feedback. But that was the direction that they gave me. And then they caveated that with the fact that we are going to be going through this process where we're looking at signage and trail names and educational initiatives, and that could be another opportunity to provide a better Indigenous connection.
Correct.
But yeah, we are open to any recommendation that you might have.
Very good. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Just to clarify for time's sake, I think that if the commissioners are able to, and if you would like to, I would at least recommend that you vote on keeping the Observatory Mesa section if that's what you desire. And if you want to put more recommendations, if you do not agree with the natural and cultural preserve part of the name, that's something that you can also say we'd like to present recommendations on that part, and as well as on the signage, trail signage, if that's what you want. Would that be okay, Robert?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was just looking through the chat. I noticed that there were some questions. I wasn't sure if I addressed everything. So I just wanted to just quick see if there's any questions I didn't address. Yeah, so revisiting the signage, I think there is opportunity to interpret Indigenous uses of plants and trees and that sort of thing. Just so you're aware, we did reach out to tribes during the trail planning process. We didn't get a lot of feedback from tribes, but we are working with tribes on signage, including a new sign that we're working on for Picture Canyon at the Pit House Overlook. And so, if this commission has, I think maybe my colleague Sylvia might have presented that project to you guys. But if you have any feedback on that, of course, you're welcome to provide that to us as well. Yeah, and one of the questions that you all might be able to help with is that how do we narrow in and including Indigenous culture in our signage with so many tribes that have an affiliation of the area? And so maybe you could provide a little bit of feedback on that with your recommendation. I know we have a lot of tribes that are very tied to the Flagstaff area, and how do we pick like a particular language if we're going to include some Indigenous language on it? So. Feel free to jump in. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think the use of QR codes would help in not only presenting the pronunciation of certain things, but also share some of that history and also give some context as to how tribes and communities might be existent and continue to exist in these spaces. And then I know that like as you're talking about signage, I would like to motion, as Rose suggested, that we move forward with Observatory Mesa as like that route, and that we, as a commission, dive into it a little bit quicker about what that natural and cultural preserve could look like and offer suggestions with that. But I think having signage that would include some of the languages would be great throughout, but having QR codes to give a greater description would be great.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who has any questions for Mr. Wallace?
I think Daryl made a motion. So we need a second.
I'll second that motion, Commissioner Lance. This is Commissioner Lance.
Okay. Also, we need to have a vote. All who are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all who
Aye.
oppose? And all who oppose? Okay.
Well, thank you all for your time. I'll share that with the Open Spaces Commission, and they appreciate your time as well to weigh in on this topic. And when we get closer to designing our signage or selecting trail names, we'll be back in front of you for additional input.
Thank you again.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Have a great
Robert.
day.
And Rebecca.
Okay, we'll move on to discussion item or item number 6, discussion items. The Indigenous Commission review the proposed interpretive mitigation related to Native American history and provide input. Heritage Preservation Officer Lauren Clementino will provide a presentation. At the July 16th, 2025 meeting, the Heritage Preservation Commission approved a Phase 1 cultural resource study for the former municipal building at 19 West Birch Avenue. The building was found to be significant for its association with the Native American Civil Rights Movement. The owner proposes to demolish the existing building on the parcel to construct a hotel. One of the options selected by the Heritage Preservation Commission to mitigate the proposed demolition was to develop interpretive mitigation, a link to download, in conjunction, was to develop interpretive mitigation in conjunction with the Indigenous Commission. The agenda and minutes from the meeting, as well as a link to download the study, are available here. It is located at 6B. Important to read the cultural resources study. Officer Clementino, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair Lance, for the introduction. So I am here today to kind of get the conversation started, get some preliminary input from your commission and gauge your interest level, see how you would like to move forward. So as you read there's put a quick recap in the agenda, but I'll start with some background on the project and what we're doing, so you understand a little bit more about where we're coming from. So it's the old City Hall building, which also housed at one point the City Court, City Police, City Fire, other city departments, was at 120 North Beaver and 19 West Birch, and it is a Malapai stone building still there downtown. It was constructed in the early 1950s, so it is over 50 years old, and under our Heritage Preservation Code, to demolish the building requires doing a cultural resource study to evaluate the significance and integrity of the building. And so that's really how this all got started, is the developer who owns that parcel plans to demolish it in order to build a hotel. So because of the planned demolition, this building had never been formally studied before. Although, it is in our downtown area, it's not in the Railroad Addition Historic District like a lot of the other older buildings downtown, and it had just never been studied before. So that's where Cornerstone Environmental was hired by the developer to do the cultural resource study. And in doing their research on the building, so they went through a lot of different things about the history of the building, but the main one that I'm here to talk to you about is its association with the Native American civil rights movement, in particular with the AIM movement in the 70s, the American Indian movement, and because the building housed the court, the jail, the police department, the role of the police and the court system in association with the AIM movement, and subsequent investigations by the ACLU, kind of all tied the building into being significant in the role of those events. And so I don't know if you've all had time to read through the whole report, but quite a lot of information there. But one of the big things that was pointed out was there was an arrest of 7 members of the AIM movement at the 1972 powwow in Flagstaff. And so the police department, the court, and the jail housed in this building, were involved in that arrest, and then the later ramifications. It ended up being a fairly major case, and it exposed some big things about our police and court system that did eventually lead to some changes. So things like, and there were other relevant cases. That's one of the major ones brought up in the report, but there are some others. So things like, being held with a pretty high amount of bail for a misdemeanor crime, not being provided with access to interpreters, not being provided with access to public defenders. Those sorts of things were brought up through these cases, and which, some leading also to an ACLU investigation and some changes being brought about. So all of these things were part of what the report brought up as being significant for the history of the building. And one thing that Phase 1 Cultural Resource Study is asked to do under our Heritage Preservation Code is propose mitigation for a major impact. And in this case, the major impact would be demolition of the building. And so in addition to accepting the report and the report findings, which the Heritage Preservation Commission did, they are also tasked with selecting mitigation for the major impact. And so they did select a few different mitigation options, such as doing a Phase 2 level report, which would be measured architectural drawings and extensive archival photography of the building before it's demolished. They also asked that this study, as well as the Phase 2, be made publicly accessible, either through the city website and hopefully also made available at the public library, possibly also Klein Library. So that way all of the information, the history uncovered, will be publicly accessible for future research. But in terms of, how best to capture and mitigate for the significance related to the AIM movement, the commission did not decide on a specific avenue, but instead kind of left it open to be determined and asked for the Indigenous Commission to weigh in on what that possible mitigation might look like. And so just to give some examples of what, kind of this conversation could look like, often when the mitigation for association with significant events or persons, it could look like a plaque being put up, possibly with a QR code that links out to a website with additional history. Similar to some of the interpretation conversations we were just having about Observatory Mesa, it could be something like that, interpretive sign, with text and photos linking out to a plaque. And that could be located on the site of where the new hotel is going. It could be inside, it could be outside, or it could be located somewhere off-site on city property. And one thing that could be a possibility is Thorpe Park, where although this building was associated, as the jail and the police department and the court, the arrests themselves actually took place during the powwow at Thorpe Park. So that, could be a place to house interpretation. Other options that we've seen done in the past were things like creation of an interpretive pamphlet or booklet that the city could distribute, and then also have give to other repositories like the public library to have available, something like that, which would allow you to capture more information than just an interpretive sign. And so a recent project that did that, there was the old paper mill that was demolished. This same firm, Cornerstone Environmental, developed a little booklet kind of capturing the history of that site. So that's another option. The developer of the hotel, the brand of the hotel that they're proposing is in partnership with Hilton, and it's called the Graduate. And sort of the theme of Hilton Graduate hotels is trying to incorporate local history and wherever they are, as well as tying into whatever the local university is. So of course, in this case, that's NAU. So they do plan on the interior of the hotel to have a lot of interpretive and historical, photographs, maps, that sorts of thing on display. So they are also open to something along those lines that they could have on the interior of the hotel. So those are just some, overview of examples. And so nothing has been decided yet. And I'm mainly here today to talk about, how you would like to be involved and, what the next steps are. So I can, if you're interested, I would be happy to invite the authors of the cultural resource study to come and give a presentation on all of their research and what they found, which they can go more in depth in addition to what they had in the report. They did do that presentation for the Heritage Preservation Commission at the last meeting, and I'm sure they would be happy to come and give that presentation as well. They can also work on developing some preliminary examples or ideas for mitigation, to get feedback. If you would prefer, instead of just starting from a blank slate, if it's easier to have some ideas to react to and develop off of. And so I'd be happy to invite them back to another one of your commission meetings, or if you'd be more interested in forming possibly a subcommittee to have a separate meeting instead of meeting with a larger group, that's something we could talk about as well. And really just love to hear your thoughts. Commissioner Francis?
Thank you so much, Lauren, for your presentation. Do you mind, and Rose, do you have, do I have share capabilities? Okay, I'm going to share with the commission a video actually I took while driving of this building so that people have reference of what it is. So this is that, let me go a little slower. This is that building, right? This is the one you're talking about.
Yes, that is.
And it used to be the police station, the firehouse, and something else.
And City Hall and the city court was on the second floor of that main two-story piece.
And so this whole building will then be demolished to put up the new hotel by Hilton, the Graduate.
Yes, that's the proposal there. I can go over more of the steps in the development review process if you're interested. It is not cleared for demolition yet. There are additional steps that they need to do in addition to developing this mitigation before they can demolish. They need additional approvals from the Heritage Preservation Commission, as well as some other city staff review for the new project. But yes, that is the plan.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, unless you still need it up. Anybody need it up? No? So my question again, to clarify, is this building is not yet set for demolition?
Correct.
They're waiting for a response. Oh, and then by the way, I have stayed at the Graduate by Hilton in Tucson. And you know what they do at that hotel is they actually highlight, they give you the door keys of past basketball players. So this one was Iguodala back in the day, and here's a famous, baseball player. And so that's what the theme of the Graduate is they use a lot of the college sports teams, right, to highlight. I think these were their like ID cards in college or something. So I'm very familiar with the Graduate Hotel. When it comes to this history, and I'm very I am very thankful, in fact, that Rose had brought this to my attention, just that history component, and always hearing about the Powells and Flagstaff, and then that what had happened in, as far as trying to include the history of our Indigenous civil rights as a part of that movement of what was happening, and how Flagstaff has in the past had our border town issues. Clearly, that is what it was about. My question, though, is in supporting the Historic Preservation Commission, in reaching out to the community, has it also been a part of our school districts for our young people in our community to know the importance of why this building should be preserved? This is a living history that I don't know if this is possible, that our school districts can be a part of this conversation, if that's possible to include in the curriculum, if it's so important to be saved at a level, and not be turned into a hotel. And yeah, we'll have some pictures and things involved, I'm sure, in those hotels, but this is a really significant piece of history that we're talking about. So that's my question.
There has not been any outreach to any other groups. Of course, the commission meetings are public, and there's been quite a lot of publicity about this project. It's been covered in the newspaper and other avenues in the last few months, and there will be additional avenues for participation as the review of the demolition, which will have to come in as a certificate of appropriateness to the Heritage Preservation Commission, will be a public hearing. So there are other opportunities for folks to participate, but no, there has not been outreach in that regard. But it is something that I could take that recommendation to, in addition to the public library, maybe providing the report copies to the local high schools as well, and their libraries, to have that on file to share the history. And just to clarify, though, although the demolition is not approved yet, because the phase 1 culture resource study requires approving the mitigation for the major impact, regardless of, sort of before the demolition approval, the mitigation does still need to be decided. Even if in the end it is not approved and the demolition doesn't happen, we do still need to move forward now with developing what the mitigation is and would look like. And I should also explain, so in addition to other city processes for reviewing demolition, the Heritage Preservation Commission, like I just mentioned, will see a certificate of appropriateness probably later this fall for the demolition, as well as for the new design of the Graduate, because it's in the downtown historic overlay zone, which has a design guidelines for that area. The commission also has to review the new design to see whether it meets those requirements. And so they'll be looking at that If that was denied, the developer could apply for a certificate of economic hardship, and that it's a complicated path, but they could apply for that, basically saying that it would be economically infeasible for them not to move forward with their development, meaning that they would not be able to sell the hotel to someone, you know, for the same fair market value of what they bought it for or what they, you know, plan to develop it as. And if that was also denied, the way the code is written, most likely the way that would work would be a 1-year stay of demolition, in which they would try to sell it to someone for that market value. And if that, you know, didn't work out, after a 1-year stay of demolition, they could still move forward with this project. So there isn't, so just to clarify in terms of, you know, asking to do outreach to try and save the building, the way that the code is written, there isn't, you know, just a way for demolition to just be denied. There would still be paths to move forward. And so just to share that information. So in the meantime, we do still want to keep moving forward with, you know, what the mitigation would look like, and continue to complete the cultural resource study requirements. And that, and Commissioner Loma Mbaya, that is your question about even if it was placed on the National Register. Yes, the National Register provides no protection whatsoever. So the strongest protection is actually being in the historic overlay zone, which is what requires a certificate of appropriateness, as well as, or a certificate of economic hardship and a potential 1-year stay of demolition. Being listed in itself doesn't provide that protection. It would really, so for example, somewhere in town that is listed on the National Register but was outside of the overlay zone, they would just be looking at this process of doing the cultural resource studies to document the building, and mitigation before demolition. So, and let's see, going, I want to make sure I didn't miss Commissioner Mark's comments in the chat. Ask for an interpretive mural or collage of archival photos, including the QR code, which links visitors to videos and interviews of the history leading up to the civil rights movement in Flagstaff. Ask there be contributions to enable capturing of recorded interviews and a mini documentary chronicling the area. True, yeah. Thank you for that comment. Would the commission be interested in having the Cornerstone Environmental come and present their report, and all of their research findings at a future meeting?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Is that a good next step for, and I provided the link to the minutes from the Heritage Preservation Commission in the chat, as well as the direct link to download the report, if you want to do so. And Cornerstone is currently working on the phase 2 report, which would be the archival photography and the measured drawings. And I'd be happy to share that when it comes back for review as well. But if it, and
Lauren?
yes, go ahead.
I just want to ask when and where do you want the input to be made by the Indigenous Commission? Do you want it at your commission meeting, or after the presentation by the researchers, or can you give us an idea of that?
Sure, I think some of that is up for decision right now, depending on how you would like to do it. I am happy to, just gather your feedback and present it to the Heritage Preservation Commission. If you wanted to, have a further discussion in the next meeting, and I can take that back. Or if you wanted to select maybe a liaison who would come and speak on behalf of the commission at the Heritage Preservation Commission when this is back on the agenda. That could be something that we do as well. There isn't a strict timeline at the moment. I think probably the earliest this would go back to the commission would maybe be October, possibly later. The developer is not far enough along with their design of the new hotel to take the design to the commission yet, and they will be taking the new design and the demolition together for the certificate of appropriateness. So I think I'm just estimating, but because it hasn't even just come in for regular city staff review yet, I think October at the earliest, but probably November or later. So so there isn't, we don't need an answer today. We can definitely continue the conversation.
So commissioners, what do you want to do? Do you want to just email me your input as to what you feel like should happen in preserving the history of the building? Obviously it's going to get demolished at some time. That's what I'm getting. But or do you want to set aside a meeting to further discuss as a group what your input would be? So I'm just doing that because we're running out of time, and I know some commissioners have to drop off.
I would like to meet with Cornerstone and to hear from them, and then kind of proceed with the conversation about what we'd like to do in terms of interpretation.
Would it be helpful if in that meeting Cornerstone, presented some possible mitigation ideas that they have based on their research and other mitigation they've developed?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that would be good because they're experienced with providing those kinds of plans and things like that. So
okay. And they can, some of the suggestions, they may be able to say, yes, we found these great oral histories or this record of photographs, things like that they would suggest including. And would just so we're set up for success, is there any interest in including mitigation or interpretation at Thorpe Park as well? In which case, I would also probably ask our colleagues in the Parks Department to be here so they can be involved, as they would end up being the ones housing the mitigation. Usually it's housed on site of what, in this case, at the new hotel of the development, but this case, it seems like it could be reasonable, make more sense, benefit for the community to have it in a more public place like Thorpe. So, okay, it seems like that's nods of agreement. So maybe that sounds like that's a good direction. I can coordinate with Rose on getting on an agenda and hopefully have Cornerstone, myself, and some parks representation to have that conversation.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners. Back
Thank
to
you all
Chair.
for your time.
Back to you, Chair.
thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, thank you, Officer Clementino. We're going to move on to discussion item 7, informational items, 2 from commission members, staff, and future agenda item requests. Anybody have anything to share? Okay. I guess we can adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.
Just that the Indigenous Code Talker Day event is on Monday at 9 a.m. We'll have burritos.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to say that, but you beat me to it, which is great. Yeah, I appreciate everybody being there and doing what we can, shaking hands, kissing babies.
Yep. And Rose, we're gonna be over there about 8, right? To set up.
Yes, we're going to
Okay.
set up at 8.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you
Thank you
guys.
all.
We'll adjourn this meeting at 12:37 p.m. August 7th, 2025. Thank you.